Uh, Hello, Iona community members. My name's Helen, and some of you, well, perhaps many of you, will know me, and many of you won't know me. My name is Helen Wass O'Donnell, and from the year 2000 to the year 2010, so for 10 years, I was responsible for the Iona community's youth work. And that was before I became the one-eyed monster, and and became a wee bit ill. And in those days, we had a vibrant youth work team. I managed a team of 6 youth workers based in the Glasgow office. Yes, 6 of us. But only one person was paid for the community, paid by the community, and that was me. The rest of the workers, I managed to raise the money for the staff team, and we each took on a different role within the team, and looking after different aspects and elements of youth work. In the time that I was there, I took a young adult group to Israel and Palestine, where we met with young Jewish, young adults, young Jewish adults, young Palestinian adults, and then of course the group from the UK. And we mixed together for 10 days, and we travelled around the whole, well, not the whole, but a lot of Israel and Palestine, including the West Bank, having discussions on what it was like to be a young person living in these different areas and how to integrate with each other. And it was an amazing experience. In that time, we also I developed a programme for young offenders, and with a colleague I went into the prisons, sadly only in Scotland, but we went into the prisons in Scotland, and I developed a programme called Can You Hear the Bigots Sing? And it was a 6-week programme which we delivered predominantly to young prisoners, but it became that it was larger than just young people. It went out to adult prisoners as well. And we travelled around various different prisons in Scotland and developed a programme for young ex-offenders involving Iona community members and who became befrienders of people who had left prison, and we got involved with the probation service, etc. But also I worked with groups from Glasgow, and took a group of young people from Glasgow and helped them who'd never been out of the city, to train them up. And I got money from I think it was the Millennium Fund, and we walked the West Highland Way from Glasgow to Fort William. It was 98 miles or something like that, so that was quite a feat for them. But we we also worked with students, and we had a range of different projects with different groups of young people from different backgrounds, and different members of the team were involved in different things, and I was managing it. And of course we had the weeks on Iona and Camas, and I ran the training in child protection, and helped provide the community's child protection and really policies with Neil Squires. So I was quite heavily involved in youth work for 10 years. I haven't really got involved in the discussions that have taken place about Camas. Deliberately I've kept away from it because I haven't really wanted to, well, it's really important, I just haven't really wanted to get involved in that. But I feel that I have got something to say, which hopefully is a bit factual as well as about being opinionated. And the first thing I wanted to share with you is that in the document that has come from, is it council? From the community in its last email, which outlined the position that the community is in re Camas. It struck me that the document talks about all of the difficulties, and there are all the difficulties that there are in attempting to keep Camas open, whether it's the track, whether it's the health and safety aspects of the building, or whether it's staffing, or whether it's the location and the ability to get help if needed, etc. However, when the Abbey needed to be refurbished, the community approached it in a way which was superb. It was wonderful. It was all about not so much the difficulties. The Abbey was needing refurbished without a shadow of a doubt, but it wasn't about the difficulties. It was about how can we make this happen. It was a given that the Abbey's work would continue. And unfortunately, with this document that's come from the community, there wasn't a given that this work at Camas would continue, and how could we make it happen. That given wasn't there. It was about the difficulties being really insurmountable and immense. And there's disputes amongst the different discussions about whether, the difficulties are immense and all that sort of stuff. And I didn't want to get involved in that so much, but just point out that the premise is different. And I wanted to raise that as something that maybe people might want to look at. And the second thing that I wanted to say is that in the discussions that I've not really looked at them, read them very closely, but I know that there people are asking questions about the community's future youth work. And what I wanted to say about that was, well, yes, of course the community will always want to do youth work. Well, I don't know, maybe it doesn't, but I presume and I think it does. I think it does want to engage in working with young people. There is a group that the community is already working with, and that's the young adult group, the YAG. And what I want to say is that group of individuals are amazing young adult leaders, and that's a very important part of the community's work. And of course it needs to continue, and it needs supported. And it's one section of young people. It isn't the only section, and working with that particular group of individuals is not the same, and shouldn't be the same as working with perhaps less educated young people, because these young folk, the YAG group, are well educated leaders who are brilliant. Working with groups of young folk that perhaps don't have those opportunities, haven't had those, that don't come from that background, and maybe don't want to have that background either, is not the same. And I'll give you an example of this, how the two don't work together. In my wisdom, when I was working with the Iona community, I decided that, because we used to go away on weekends with groups of young folk, and this particular weekend I decided that what I would do is I would take the youth associates, that's what we called the YAG group then in my day, So we take the youth associates and we gather a group. Now they might have been from Glasgow, but I really can't remember where they were from. But it was another group of young people from a completely different background, and the two groups together and having a weekend together. Now it was all agreed in advance and everybody knew what it was, etc. So it wasn't as if it was a surprise. But what was a surprise was what happened. So the young adult group wanted to have a discussion together about various different topics that they had been thinking about, whereas the group from, I'm going to say Glasgow, I don't know, right? But the other group, they wanted to go to the pub. The young adult group wanted to cook together. The other group wanted to go to the chippy. And it took some time for the group to have some coming together, and you know, the group stayed together for the weekend. They managed to just stay together, but it really didn't work. And it taught me that actually the needs are different within the different groups, and it isn't right to try and do that. Not in that context, maybe in a different context, but certainly not in that context. It just didn't work. So the question I have is, because I don't know, because I'm out of touch with things, you know, is the community working with young people in different contexts other than the YAG group? Where is it working and how is it working? And if Camas is no longer there, how is that going to happen and where is that going to happen? You know, Camas did provide for groups like young prisoners, people in prison who were able to come, who, because of their sentences, they were able to come and have some time in Camas with their prison officers. That probably wouldn't be able to happen unless it's a context like Camas. You know, where could you get a centre whereby you get young Torags from like Neil Young's groups, oh God, who were a bit of a nightmare, and they used to smash the place. No, they didn't smash the place up completely, but they were challenging and they might break a few things and still be able to return. You know, does the community want to continue, and does it feel it can continue to work with groups in that way? I'm not trying to wind back the clock. This is now 2026 and things are different, but there are questions that the consequences of closing Camas. I just wanted to raise the point about the premise that the community is coming from with this document, and about the consequences. I would be very happy to work with any group that's put together by the community that's looking at working with young people from different contexts, based on my experience, to see what is possible for the community. Because, you know, then I didn't have money and the community didn't have money. We had to raise it for the staff team to be there. But it made a big difference to the amount of people that were connected to the community and that were inspired by the community. So I wanted to share all of that, and it's too difficult for me to write things down because of my sight problems. So I hope you didn't mind having to listen to this. Thanks very much, folks. Bye-bye.